Hi, Sun Prairie. My name is Nick Zweifel. I'm your Dane County Board Supervisor for the City of Sun Prairie. And I want to welcome you to my brand new show. It's called Supe Talk. Supe, of course, short for Supervisor. I'm doing this show because I think it would be valuable to show all of my constituents, what it is that Dane County really does and provides for you. Where do your tax dollars go, and what services do you get back in return? And I think it would also be kind of fun to meet the people in person on my show, or at least see them in person, so you get an idea of who it is that provides your services, what they do, and a little bit about who they are. So what do you say we get going? We're going to have a lot of exciting interviews to do in this show, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So instead of listening to me stand here and talk, I say zip up my coat, throw on my hat, and let's go talk to the people that make your county tick. Come on, I'm excited about this. I hope you are too. Hey, we're here for our first interview, and I'm really excited today because we're going to interview the head of our Dane County Health and Human Needs Department, Lynn Green. This should be a great interview. Lynn is a fantastic person. She's been a mentor to me. I sit on the Health and Human Needs Department, so I work with Lynn quite a bit. And they are worth, this department handles $250 million out of our budget, which is half of our $500 million budget. So come on, let's go meet Lynn and learn what she does for Dane County. Let's go. Well, hi, welcome to Supe Talk, and this is, by the way, this is our first episode, and I'm Supervisor Nick Zweifel. I represent the city of Sun Prairie. And I just thought it would be interesting to do a show for my constituents and anybody else that wants to watch about what it is Dane County does for all of its residents that live in Dane County. And so this is our inaugural show. It's the first one. And I'm on a couple of committees. One of the committees I'm on is the Health and Human Needs Committee. And I'm very excited about that because I'm a high school math teacher and I care a lot about kids and families and what affects them in our communities. One of the reasons, by the way, why I ran. And this is Lynn Green, and she's the head of the Health and Human Needs Department.
Department of Human Services.
Department of Human Services. I always get that confused because I'm on HHN, Health and Human Needs, and then your department has a
we were Health and Human Services until the Health Department merged with the city and became their own department 5+ years ago. So that was accurate.
And Lynn has been, by the way, just want to prop you up because she's been a great mentor. I mean, if I have questions, she comes to all the meetings, all the committee meetings that I go to, and not just the Health and Human Needs. You were at Homeless Issues last night, and she's always there to answer questions. She always answers emails, and you've been a fantastic resource for me at the Dane County Board, and I'm really excited for you to meet all of my constituents. So could you start off by just giving us a short bio of yourself and how did you get to this spot?
Sure, and I'll be brief, but I want to thank you for launching your show with the Department of Human Services.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Of course, this is the best department in the county.
That's right.
But we are, and we'll talk about that briefly, but we are a huge part of the county budget and we really do some important things. So I'm glad that, you're launching your show with us. A very brief bio is, I always kid people, I'm as old as I look, but I have been with the county for 41 years.
You're only in your 20s?
Right, I wish. But I've been with the county for 41 years, and prior to that I actually worked for the state for 3 years doing adoption and foster care work. So I'm a social worker by background, and I came out of the Children, Youth, and Family Division and was a Child Protective Services social worker. But I've worked in all the field offices. I've worked in, most of the areas, many of the areas of what the department does. And now I've been fortunate enough, and I really feel fortunate enough, to be the director. I'm on my 11th year. So I'm really.
So this has been your life's work.
This has been my life's work. It's really been a passion for me. It really has been. So.
Well, great. And I would tell you that, and that shows. As I said before, I don't know how you go to all those committee meetings,
No,
but
thank
she's
you.
always there, and she's always there to answer questions and to help and give us advice and let us know what to do. So you're also in this great building on
We are.
Northport Drive, and this building has a little bit of history. So could you tell us a little bit about your unique office space?
The building actually has a lot of history, and what I like to say, it's a building that's always been there to care about people, so that's what's interesting. But it was built in 1929 when TB became a huge major issue nationally, but also in Dane County, there was a private smaller sanitarium, and when that could not cope with the epidemic that TB was, the county built this building. So in 1929, opened it as a TB sanitarium in 1930, and it operated as a hospital facility until the early 60s. And then it was closed and reopened as the social services department in 1966 was moved out here. So the building has a lot of incredible history, and the county has done a lot of work to renovate it so it can be usable for what we use it for, which is office space, but also to preserve the historical nature of it.
And there's a county park attached to this, correct?
We are surrounded by a county park. It's a conservancy, so the county has gone out of its way to be sure it'll stay county land and be preserved, and that the historical nature of the building will remain, so.
And then I have to say, so if my cameraman here would be so kind, but you have the best view in the city. If you could turn the camera and just maybe point it out, you can see the Capitol out here and the lakes, and it's amazing.
We are actually, I believe, I've been told many, many times, we're the highest point in Dane County, and it's an incredible view, an incredible sledding hill for kids, which is fun to watch. Great park, hiking trails, lots of dog walkers back there, and a neighborhood that's really dedicated to it. So it's a great building.
Great. Well, hey, let's maybe get into the real tough questions.
Okay.
So what is it this department does? What are the services it provides? You know, I don't think people necessarily really understand the whole scope of what it is that you do. And you and I talked before we started the interview, and I know you want to get in depth, and I'm definitely going to come back and we're going to talk
That'd be
about
great.
certain separate aspects in depth, because some of the things you're going to say are really their own show.
Right, so I because it's a lengthy topic, I'll be really brief, and then please do come back, and we'll do some specific topics that would interest, your constituents or other people. But the department is over 50% of the county budget as a whole, so it's a almost $44 million budget. I say to people, the reason that I've probably stayed in this business as long as I have is that Dane County cares so much about its citizens, and that's reflected in the fact that they fund human services to the level that they do. So the major, Wisconsin is one of 13 remaining states that does their human services work through counties. So a lot of what we do are actually federal responsibilities to the state that are then contracted down to the counties in Wisconsin. So we do child protective services, we do delinquency work, our social workers are the juvenile court workers, we do elder abuse, the statutes around elder abuse, adults at risk, services to people with developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, sensory disabilities. We have a area agency on aging, so we do a lot of senior services. We opened recently Aging Disability Resource Center, an ADRC, so we have an information and referral source. In addition, we determine the eligibility for all the public assistance programs. That's food share, frequently known as food stamps, Medicaid, emergency assistance, energy assistance. So we own the job center, and we have workers over there who are currently carrying caseloads of upwards of 1,000 people. That's where we can document where the economy has hit even Dane County. So we do all the eligibility. We also put millions of dollars into sheltering homeless housing programs. And in addition, we own and operate the Badger Prairie Healthcare Center, the nursing home out by Verona, the state-of-the-art nursing home that we opened about 2 years ago now.
Now that could be a show.
That would be a wonderful show because it's energy efficient, it's a standout in the country, geothermal, solar water heat. It's a wonderful example of an energy efficient, very consumer-friendly nursing home serving the most difficult people that need to be served.
So of the $250 million, that doesn't all come from just taxpayers, right? You get
It
money
doesn't.
from the state, and
It
you get money
doesn't.
from grants, and you get money
Yeah.
from the federal government. So
Yes.
could you break down the $250 million that comes into the county,
Sure.
and then?
Sure. I want to reassure everybody that we try to be, I mean, I went into public service, choosing the difference between public and private, and I'm very cognizant that we use taxpayer dollars and that many taxpayers are, stressed, and that we need to use them efficiently and effectively, and that we also need to find as much outside revenue as we can and lean on local taxpayers as little as we possibly can. So of that budget, only around 27% this year is local, what we call tax levy, general purpose revenue. So only a quarter of our budget is actually money that comes from the Dane County taxpayers in terms of county dollars. The rest of the money is, as I said, we operate many of our services on contracts through the state, so we get substantial amount of money and contracts from the state to do the mandates that the feds have. We seek insurance and fee collections wherever possible. We do a lot of claiming on Medicaid for eligible services where people are eligible for that. We seek grants wherever possible. The ADRC that I mentioned that we opened this fall is a $4 million operation, and it is all state and federal money and Medicaid dollars.
So that's not costing.
There isn't a penny of local taxpayer dollars in that operation of that ADRC.
Now there's a trick to this too, because the state's budget cycle
Yes,
is not the same
as ours.
as the county's budget cycle.
And the
so
federal is not the
and
same.
the federal's not the
as
same
the county or
either.
the state.
So it can, budgeting is not as easy as one.
Right, it
might
can
think.
be very tricky. We're frequently speculating. When we do our budget, we're doing our best educated guesses as to what we think those revenue streams will look like. And actually, Nick, you bring up a good point, because that's kind of in all regards. I mean, we will project what we think we can claim in Medicaid, but we don't know how many Medicaid eligible people will serve,
Right.
what the services are. So we base a lot of our budget on what I would call are pretty solid projections, based on trends of years past, and we study it really hard.
So
And
there's a lot of analysis that
a
goes
lot
in.
of, right, we have a fiscal management services unit, and we have a budget and contract compliance unit, and we put a lot of work into projecting what we consider solid budgets, since we're cognizant we're over 50% of the county budget.
Right.
And we have to be fiscally sound.
So you provide all of these services that you outlined, but we don't, the county doesn't provide all of those services, right? We have service providers where the county, we get money in and we have all these services, and we put out an RFP, a request for proposal, and we have other service providers pick those up and provide services. So could you elaborate on what is a service provider, and, because we don't just go out and hire people to do all
No.
this, other people
No.
do it for us.
No. We are a heavily purchased department, and so that means $135 million of our budget actually goes out of the department in purchase of service contracts to really wonderful providers in the community. So we think it's more efficient, that it diversifies our services, makes them better for our consumers, and it actually keeps the county government workforce, somewhat smaller than it would be in counties where they do their mental health services with county employees, or they do all their substance abuse services. We purchase those services. You're right, we do them on, their competitive bidding process, so all of the contracts are competitively bid routinely, and all new services are competitively bid. We have contracts with 250 providers in this community and throughout the county. So really, any not-for-profit provider most people could probably name is doing services for, under a county contract. And we closely monitor those contracts. We, we audit them. We're sure that the money is used effectively, but we do have just a wonderful network of private providers.
Well, that brings me to this, because in the news, there was a service provider for, what's the word?
Treatment foster care.
Yeah, for foster care
Mhm.
kids, and they help
Right.
place.
Right.
And you sent us an email about it,
Yes.
so I would like you to tell our audience, how,
Okay.
are they a provider for Dane County?
They are not. It's Community Care Resources, CCR. You're hearing a lot about them in the news in terms of the state looking into their operations. The county has not contracted with CCR for about 7 years. And it wasn't based on quality of services, but it was based on that the county does have a very tight contract. We cap the administrative ceiling, the amount of money we allow people to put into administration versus services. And about 70 years ago, they were unwilling to sign our contract, and we were unwilling to modify it. And so we have not done any services with them for 7 years.
I just thought maybe people, I know it's been in the
Would be
paper, and I'm a supervisor,
Yes.
and I was like,
Right.
I didn't know either, I was like,
Yeah.
do we contract with them?
Well, and it's confusing because of their some of their foster homes are in Dane County, but those are not Dane County kids that are in placement in those homes.
So the economic downturn has had,
Yes.
because you're always caught in this catch-22, and the economy's great, people need less services, and, money's not as big of an issue.
Mhm.
But then when the economy sinks a little bit, then money's a big issue, and then everybody needs services because people are having trouble. So
Right.
how has the downturn affected the delivery of services, and how has it affected the number of those needing to be served? And if you could, especially like families, children, vets, any new things you're seeing, that's a big loaded question.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot, and I'm trying to be concise.
Yeah,
I
you
promised
can
you I
be
would do
concise. I
that.
just give people a pulse on
Right,
what it
on
is
what's
you've seen
going
in the
on.
last year
Yeah.
or 2 years.
It's a really interesting question, especially in Dane County, because, we have been a county that has been somewhat, years ago, insulated against the economy or the trends in the United States, because we're heavily government university, and it tends to be insulated from the economy. But that's no longer true, and I really do go around and talk about this a lot, and we have a data point that I talk about just to prove to people that we can document the need in Dane County. As I said, we do eligibility for public assistance programs at the Job Center. And today, in Dane County, there is one in every 5 or 6 people in Dane County is receiving some form of public assistance through the Job Center. Now, that could just be food share, food stamps, it could just be low-income daycare, but it could be W-2, but that to me is a real documentation that people are struggling in Dane County. And you, because you've really helped out and been heavily involved, know that as a result, we're also struggling with housing and homeless issues.
Yeah.
Foreclosures have pushed people into rentals. The occupancy or the vacancy rate is very, very low, so people who don't have, the means to or the background to secure rents are unable to do so.
Well, I can elaborate on that. So when you lose your house, your credit's bad,
Yep.
and there's a 2% vacancy, which is, it's usually 12 to 14% in Madison.
Yes.
So that's allowing, landlords to push the rent up and be more picky, and so people are really struggling Because,
yes.
homelessness isn't just lazy people that don't wanna
No.
work. I mean, I'm on the homeless issues committee, we're
And
seeing
you see it,
families, children,
Yes.
living in cars, people that are working, we have a lot of working homeless.
we have a lot of working homeless, a lot of the men that sleep at night, over at Grace Church, the men's shelter run by Porchlight, a lot of them are working individuals. They are not making enough to pay for an apartment. And as you know, now you could do this part of the interview, cause Nick is very involved in these issues and has really worked hard to try to find solutions. And as you know, there's a real problem in Dane County, cause we don't have rooms to rent, single resident occupancy. We don't have a YMCA for men, we don't have single occupancy residencies, where people who have very low incomes can just rent a room. And apartments are very expensive. So,
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I think
No,
it's also
yes.
important too that what we found out is that you can't just get a job and then go get a house or an apartment and everything's okay. That we found with homelessness, there are steps to getting people out of the system, and one of those is single room occupancy
Yes.
housing. That's one of the intermittent steps. We hook them up with services, teach them how to manage their money, food and everything else, and that's one step to being fully independent later on. And so SROs are a big piece of, you don't just go from one
solution.
extreme to the other back and forth, once you're,
Exactly.
so that's what
Exactly.
makes it very,
Exactly. And you are a big part of the efforts of the county trying to solve some of these huge issues. So, we are definitely seeing the economy is hitting in terms of the number of people on assistance, the number of people homeless. This week, the new day center which we opened, that has just been a tremendous asset in the continuum of keeping homeless people safe, especially in the
Mhm.
winter weather. On Monday we had 160 people there, and yesterday we had 180. So it's just been, homelessness is clearly a huge issue that Dane County's having to tackle at this
and
point.
the success of the day center,
It's
it's
been
not just a place where people go
No.
to sit around all day. I mean, you have linked them up with, counselors for alcohol and drugs,
Right.
jobs, there's computers, lockers, and I think what some people need to understand is if a homeless person's gonna go out and find a job, they need a place to store their stuff while they go to an interview, they need a shower, they need some clothes. So we've had lots of people bring in clothing.
Yep.
They have a place to store things, they can get on a computer and look for work. And then with all the providers that we talked about earlier, we are sending people down there, right, to
Yes, and we
hook
have
up with
had
these guys and men and women and help them.
And we have had wonderful successes with people getting jobs, people getting into transitional housing, and people getting into treatment programs, which is frequently, a place that they need to start. But you're right, going to a job interview with your garbage bags full of belongings is not really a good start.
Right.
So, we have to think through all those things. So that's been a wonderful model that we're hoping, as you know,
Mhm.
to launch a permanent day resource center is what we're
Yes,
calling
by
it.
November.
Yes.
That's our goal.
Yes, that's our goal. So that's been a wonderful success. But then just briefly to how does this impact human services? It has had a huge impact on the people who need services even beyond the fiscal services. Because we know that basic needs are huge to people, and that if you don't know how you're going to provide for your family, if you don't know where you're going to live,
Mhm.
where you're going to find food for your kids, those uncertainties in life unfortunately will bring on substance abuse use, will depression, a number of things that result from some basic needs issues. So we're seeing a definite increase in domestic violence, domestic abuse. We've pretty much stabilized in child abuse, but I would say we've seen some really, the seriousness of some of the child abuse we see has really increased.
Hasn't the domestic abuse against women gone up like 300%?
Yes, and they have a capital campaign now to try to expand and build a bigger shelter. So we're seeing the result of all that, waiting lists for mental health services, for substance abuse services, and you know, clearly basic needs have a huge impact on other issues that occur, so.
Well, that leads into, let's talk a little bit about the budget. A couple things for my district, since this is for my constituents. One of the things my district was really important to them was we had a field office in Sun Prairie, and I worked really hard with you and County Exec Joe Parisi to get that back. So
Right.
that was one thing we got back. And we worked with the Sunshine Place, I believe. So we have that back in Sun Prairie. And I also was able to secure $500,000 for software upgrades. And I'd like you to talk
In
a
the
little.
Child Protective Services area,
Yep.
a software, IT upgrade. That IT is always exciting and data is always exciting, but the other part of this is that it will really help our workers to use their time more efficiently so that they can spend more time in the field, more time with families, more time, more of their hours being sure that children are safe, that they're getting what they need when abuse or neglect has occurred, and that we're able to invest as much of our worker time in not doing the paperwork parts, but the actual service part. And the software package that you are making us capable of buying will definitely, has been proven throughout the country in places where they're using it to streamline services, to make services more effective, and we're really, really appreciative and really looking forward to that.
And at a time when you have less social workers and more cases.
And more cases and more serious cases,
right.
and our workers
They need to spend
are
time
seeing
with,
the stress of it.
They need to spend time with them and not, you know, at a desk in front of a computer typing.
Exactly.
And so if I recall, won't they basically be allowed to have like a tablet or something
Have
else, and they'll be able to
tablets.
record and
Yep.
take photos and upload
Yep.
and do things
In
right
home,
from the
do
site.
it right there, not have to come back and transcribe it again. It's extremely consumer friendly. Just gets really rave reviews, and actually we are being watched because we're going to be a pilot for it in the state, and other counties are watching to see
great.
what. Yeah,
Wow.
so it's very exciting, and we're very appreciative.
Yeah, I was ecstatic to be able to have that put in the budget for you guys, because I know how hard you work, and budgets aren't always kind to services. So I'm looking
very
forward to
appreciative.
seeing how that, maybe that's going to be a full show.
Yes, that would be great.
So the hard questions are all done.
Good.
I would
And
like
we're
to know
getting the high sign.
your
here.
life's work.
My life's work.
What is one of the things that I think are one of the most proudest things or best feelings you've had about, and it doesn't have to be since you've been the department head of this department, but in your
Yep.
career working for the county?
Okay, and I'll be brief because we're getting the high sign here. So, and it's going to be a funny answer. I mean, you're going to think it's funny, potentially. But I went in this to do public service and child protective services, and when I thought about the answer to this question, I thought of a ton of things. I mean, I started the Children Go First program in Dane County. I opened the South Madison office in the 80s. I mean, I've done a lot, but what stands out in my mind are the families I worked with, where I know I literally saved kids' lives, and people will to this day send me pictures to show that these kids have succeeded, they've graduated from college. I mean, I feel like how many people in their careers can actually say that they saved children's lives, and have given them really a life and a future? And so I think if I reflect on my career, probably the real genuine standouts are that I think I've actually can show that I've helped people be what they could be and to be safe.
Well,
So,
and you know what, I totally get that. I'm a teacher, and when graduates come back and talk to you about
great.
something you did for them that helped them get through college, or you made an impact in their life somehow that really helped turn them around, so I totally get
or
that.
you took them out of abusive homes and
Yeah.
got them with families that couldn't have nurtured and loved them more, and they have just flourished. So that's what stands out.
Well, Lynn, that's it, and I want to
Thank
thank you.
you.
I think this
This has
was a
been great.
fantastic first episode, and I will be back because there's a lot we need to talk about that I think
Please.
people will be interested in hearing.
Please find out, I'm sure you'll get feedback, find out what your constituents are interested in, and we will talk more.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us on Supe Talk, and until next time, our next interview, I'll see you next time. Thanks. Wow, now that was a lot of fun. I learned a ton. I hope you learned a lot too. And you know what? We're going to do a lot more of these. So I hope you stay tuned. I hope you check out my YouTube channel and my blog and follow along and read what the county is doing on a daily basis for you. And, until next time, Supervisor Zweifel saying we'll see you next time on Supe Talk. Thanks a lot. Bye.